might be in the bar if all four have won, or we could be feeling very sorry for ourselves with a bottle of water outside otherwise. Hello and welcome along to the first proper jumps preview this season on Let's Talk Racing. I can tell by that smirk, Andrew, you're excited.
Yeah, it should be fantastic, obviously heading into Chepstow. I think usually it's the benchmark meeting that a lot of National Hunt fans use, as when a lot of the good horses come out for Paul Nicholls and the likes, and hopefully we'll be able to preview those cards and find a couple of winners in the process to get us kick-started in the right fashion.
We're going to go through every single race on the Friday of Chepstow because we've got the declarations in. We don't have them for Saturday, but we do have a few selections that if they were to run, we would quite fancy. Apologies, I look and feel a bit ropey. Last night, too many drinks, and I'm feeling the worst of it now. So apologies for the hat, and you know, I feel like I've just woken up and gone, yep, camera, here we go.
Now I'm going to be setting standards high this weekend coming over to see you, Josh. So fingers crossed. Fingers crossed you make it through the weekend. If you've made it through the weekend, if people see a tweet from you on Monday morning, it'll be a good sign.
The final selections will be on Twitter, so if there are any non-runners or anything like that, then we will tweet. I'm sure you'll probably put your selections out. I'll put my selections out for Friday and Saturday's racing. So do go over and follow us on Twitter if you don't already. Our final selections will be there, but these are our general thoughts at the moment. And the first race comes at 1 o'clock, a 2-mile Novices hurdle, and we've got last year's Aintree bumper winner Nappers Hill there. He's going to be extremely short, but he looks a different league. I think that's fair to say.
No, not at all. And at some stages throughout this video, we've got to make sure it doesn't become a Paul Nicholls PR piece, because he unfortunately does manage to go through these Chepstow cards early in the season, and this looks to be a horse. I don't know what price he'll go off, probably 1 to 2, something along those lines. Not a sort of price you'd be backing at, but he's an exciting novice hurdler, and hopefully he gets the job done first time of asking.
Absolutely. I don't think we need to go into too much detail. He won at Chepstow last year. He won the Ascot listed bumper, then won at Aintree. A polished CV so far today, and you would expect him to win well on his first start over hurdles. The next race comes at 1:35, and it is the Tom Malone Bloodstock Novices Chase over 3 miles. The reason why I mentioned the sponsor of the race, Tom Malone Bloodstock, is he actually has only bought one of them in the race, and it's 3 under through 5, who is favourite currently. And I think that's a bit of a tip itself. 6th in the Bartlett. The Perth listed hurdle last time out was quite impressive. He looks like one of those classic Paul Nicholls chasers that's just going to improve for a fence. I think we're both in agreement that 300 through 5, Paul Nicholls will have the first 2 winners at Chepstow on Friday.
Yeah, well, I'm certainly hoping so. 300 through 5 is probably the biggest horse of the Paul Nicholls yard that I'm looking forward to this year. So I'm really looking forward that I'm going to be over and getting to see him. I think he's a lovely horse. The way he beat Castle Rush, and as you said, up in Perth, should I say, was an excellent performance. He had a pretty good year up until that as well, and he looks the type. You never know. Obviously, the owners had the 3rd in the National Hunt Chase last year. Paul Nicholls had the 2nd in the National Hunt Chase last year. Potentially they might combine here for a National Hunt Chase prospect, and the fact that he's coming out early in the season over 3 miles would be an indicator that he may well go down that sort of route.
There we go, looking down the line for anti-post snippets. I absolutely love that. The next race comes at 2:10, and it's a 3 miles Veterans Handicap Chase. Are we going to see Via Leon Rouge bounce away? A fairly competitive race. Is there one that really sticks out for you?
Yeah, it's a real competitive race, and I wouldn't put people off Via Leon Rouge, who obviously won this race 2 years ago as well. My only problem with him is he's quite high in the ratings, and there is a part of me that thinks that they might want to get him down a couple of pounds before another crack at the Beecher Chase in December time. So that's just the one thing keeping me away from him, and it's probably Michael Scudamore's Some Chaos that I quite like in this. This time last year he ran a good race when finishing 3rd in a handicap chase by Secret Investor, who's a grade 2 winner for Paul Nicholls. I thought that's decent enough form. He's around 10 to 1 in the early book at the moment. That's probably not a bad each way price.
I agree with you. I really do like Some Chaos. 10 to 1. I think he's opened up. I think I'll be definitely backing him each way. His 3 runs in the spring weren't particularly great, but 2 of them were over hurdles, and he's definitely a better horse for fences. And going back to this meeting last year, he was actually 9 lengths behind Secret Investor, so that was obviously clearly pretty good form, and he then went on to win at Kelso. And I think if he can replicate those 2 runs, I think he will win here. So some chaos, 10-1 each way, would be our selections. We're not always in agreement. This is quite strange, but I think, having a chat before, we're also in agreement in the Persian War, which comes up next at 2:45. The Grade 2, the feature of the Friday, probably one of the features of the weekend. I always look forward to it. We've had McFabulous, Time Hill in recent years. Good horses winning it. I'm going to have a pretty strong case here. Luttrell Lad, 15-2. Now, he was 16-1 with William Hill at the start of the week, and I took that. And I know that's after timing, but we didn't make a video. But I took that. But I would still get involved at 15-2, purely because I don't see how this horse finishes out the first two. He beat Ollie Murphy's Dr. Ken last year in a bumper, and Ollie Murphy's keen on Dr. Ken. He then won again at Taunton with a penalty, which is difficult to do. And he was fourth, 9 lengths behind Napper's Hill, who I think will win the first race. He won at Worcester. He didn't blow anyone away in that novice hurdle, but he won, and it was over 2 miles. He looks like a horse that's going to relish for 2.5. And he seems pretty versatile on ground. He's won on good, won on soft. And I also think there's plenty of questions to ask the rest of the field. So Peso Doble, the favourite. 4-year-olds don't have a great record in the race, and he's inexperienced. He was impressive last time out, but I was disappointed that Paul didn't enter the likes of Statman in this, and he had Halo de Zobo, who's coming from France. First Street, you know he'll stay. He's had the run, but I don't think he's good enough. Corsarin, when he won a Warwick Handicap hurdle off 113 last year, there was no way I could envisage him being a Persian war horse. I don't think he's good enough, and I'm 100% sure the Luttrell Lad is first string over Camprond, the JP runner for Philip Hobbs. That being said, if I was going to back another horse in the race, it would be Up for Parole, Jamie Snowden. He was a point-to-point winner by 18 lengths, you know he stays, and his last performance at Fossfast was very good. I just really think that Luttrell Lad, I think there's plenty of holes you can pick in these runners, and Luttrell Lad has a very solid CV, similar to the likes of a Time Hill going into this race a couple of years ago, and he would be one of my stronger fancies of the weekend.
Yeah, well, I have to agree with everything about Luttrell Lad. He looks the ideal type for this sort of race. As you say, he didn't blow anyone away at Worcester, and his jumping would have to improve a fair bit from that effort as well. But I think going up in trip could well sort that out. It's obviously quite a theme, Josh, that you're obviously not into your Latin American dancing and you don't watch Strictly Come Dancing like myself, because you're butchering this Peso Doble so much that it's quite frightening, actually. I saw it on the 4 to follow. It's Paso Doble, which is where the man acts like a bull, and there's a lot of cape work. It's a good dance, actually. You should watch it sometimes. I'm obviously a Strictly Come Dancing connoisseur myself.
I never took you for that type of man.
Yeah, no, it shocks a fair few people. But yeah, no, I'd be in agreement with you about the horse himself in terms of that. I think he needs a bit of scrubbing up on his jumping as well, and he's quite inexperienced. So Luttrell Lad would be for me. I think 15-2 is not a bad each way price, and one of those ones you might want to take now, because as you say, if Napper's Hill goes and wins the first very impressively, there'll be the wise guys catching on and trying to back similar form lines there, so he may well go off a much shorter price on that.
Funnily enough, with Luttrell Lad, one of the owners is called Michael, and he had Someday Soon, who finished third in the race in 2019. I've spoken to him, and he said he would be disappointed if he didn't finish at least one place ahead, so second or first. I think they really like the horse. The next race, we've got different views here, is the 3:22 miles 4-year-old handicap hurdle. Is the one that really sticks out for you?
Yeah, well, I know you're going to be very convinced by another Paul Nicholls runner in this. I would have been convinced, but it looks a really tough race, and it's actually a very good race for this time of the year when you look at Cabot Cliffs. Herbier has won a few good races for Ollie Greenall, but I just thought the form of Casalupi from Gary Moore's stable was very strong last year. When you look at the Tritonic form, even second, only beaten 2 lengths by Stepney Causeway, who's a horse I like an awful lot for the Skeltons. I think that's good form. He then went and won 2 tin pot races near the end of the year, but sometimes that it does very good things for a horse. It boosts the confidence, it gets their head in front, and I think coming back this year, he looked a pretty decent juvenile last year, and I'd take him. He's around 13-2 at an each way price.
I can definitely see the angle there. I do like Hell Red. He's 9-2. I was surprised that he opened up that big. Won the race last year, Paul Nicholls, with Time White off the same handicap mark. I'm going to make him my nap of the Friday. in the 4-year-old handicap hurdle. I'm a big fan. That being said, if I was going to back another horse on the race, it would be Eldon Valley for Fergal O'Brien, 15-2 each way. First run of the season last year was impressive, beating Hudson de Gruzy at Sandown. He would have a squeak, but I'm quite set on Hellred, and he'd be the one going into the Friday that I'll be hoping is going to sort the day out. The next race comes at 3:55, and it's a 2.5 mile mares novices hurdle. We've not seen many of these often. Is there one that sticks out for you?
I think the one of most interest for me is Christian Williams' horse, and there's actually Manso Line for the Brooks family. Won a Warwick bumper in March last year at 100-1. Nobody fancied it, but won quite impressively by 4.5 lengths. Then was pitched into the mare's bumper at the Aintree Festival behind Me Too Please. Was down the field that day. That can sometimes happen. This is an awful lot lighter of a race, and looks a nice enough prospect for connections. And good to see the Brooks family supporting a trainer like Christian Williams, who obviously has had some good success over the last number of years. I like the Brooks family as owners. I like the horses that they usually have, and I think this Manso Line could be a decent enough mare for them. So hopefully she can run a decent enough race. There's no prices, well, certainly there wasn't any prices that I could see on this race, but I'd like to hope you might get an each way price.
I'm going to go with Mondora. If she was trained by anybody else other than Paul Nicholls, I'll be honest, I'm not sure I'd be backing her, but she's good form behind I Like to Move It at Wincanton last year. And she's had a wind operation. I think a good summer on her back will do her the world of good. And Nicholls has won 3 of the last 4 of this. He's had Silver Forever, he had Posh Trish, and If You Say Run. So he knows what a horse needs to have to win this race. I'm pretty sure Mondora has been his only entry since entries come out. There was no other Paul Nicholls horse in there, so he didn't have a choice. He was quite set on Mondora, and that's good enough for me. The last race, the 4:25, is a 3 mile conditional jockeys handicap hurdle. I'm a big fan of Strictly a Dancer, currently 6-1. He won first time up last season over this trip at Exeter, and he's got Jack Tudor on board. And for me, that's a big plus. I don't think there is a better conditional riding out there in England at the moment than Jack Tudor. And he would be a quite strong fancy as well. Strictly a Dancer at 6-1 in the last.
For me, I'm giving one last go to finger on the switch in this here for Neil Mulholland, a perennial cliff horse of mine. I'm afraid he's been tumbling down the weights, but I'm just wondering, why is he still in training if they don't think there's one more race to be won with him? And even though he was a little bit disappointing again at Bangor last time out, he travelled into the race really nicely. As you say, sometimes in these conditional jockeys races you have to pick good conditionals, and he's got Hugh Nugent on his back, who's an equally good conditional, usually rides for the Venetia Williams stable. So hopefully finger on the switch. He's a big price. He's 16-1 at the moment. You might even get bigger on the day. It'd be a small stake each way, and geez, if that came in on the last, it'd be rounds on me, Josh.
I look forward to those. So that's the Friday done. I'm really looking forward to going, and it's going to be great being back on a race course with proper jumps racing. Saturday is a very good card as well. We're not going to go through every single race, but are there any fancies that you like?
Yeah, so I've won at Chepstow, won in the Silver Trophy. If he goes there, the 3:30 race, Gowl Road for the Twiston Davises. I quite liked him for the County Hurdle last year, and he just never seemed to travel that day. I think a step up in trip will suit him nicely. He won a few nice races at Newbury last year. When you look at Newbury and Chepstow, they wouldn't be dissimilar sort of tracks, quite long straights. Good for a galloper like himself, and I think he could go nicely if he does turn up. I think he's well handicapped. And stop whatever you're doing at Fairy House at 3:05 on Saturday, and pray to God that Jeremy's Jewel is entered for Paul Nolan, because this is a very, very good mare. 2 wins in bumpers this summer. She was very good back form as well, and if she goes there, I really, really hope she'll be winning.
A strong one then over in Ireland for Andrew. I like 3. Magistrato in the Juvenile Hurdle on Saturday. I think it's the first race at Chepstow. Orby's Legend, if he was to run in the Silver Trophy, and then Time for a Tune in the same bumper that Nappers Hill won last year.
Yeah, well, I'm massively looking forward to going. I haven't been on a racetrack since the last day of Cheltenham in 2020, so it's been a long old year and a half, so I'm really looking forward to get back into it. And I'm a little bit concerned that we've, been on the same horses for 4 races in a row. That's usually never a good sign. We're usually a lot more distance with our selections than that. But fingers crossed, it'll either be a very long faces or very happy faces for us after that 4th race. So if people do see us, you'll know from our reactions.
We might be in the bar if all 4 have won, or we could be feeling very sorry for ourselves with a bottle of water outside otherwise. Thank you very much for the support recently on the videos. If you did enjoy this, please give it a big like. We've got plenty of exciting news to let you know about soon. We're also working on audio, so you can listen to it on your commute, on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts as well. So that is in the works. Roll on the jumps season.